Minister Larson, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Terry von Bibra. I am the General Manager for Alibaba Group here in Europe, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share with you this morning a few insights, a few thoughts on the development of the consumer in China and how that development has been affected by the incredible growth in China. Before I do that, I'd like to step back and talk a little bit about our founders, and when our founders set up Alibaba, because a lot of people don't realize something I think quite special about it. Our company was founded 18 years ago, 1999, by 18 young people, and they came together in a small provincial city, Hangzhou, in China, and they did something without consciously realizing it. It's easy now in hindsight, though, to see that they were doing something that all of the great startups, all the really great internet companies today also did. None of these companies were founded trying to make a lot of money. None of these companies were founded trying to find a way to become a huge company. They were almost all founded by young people who had a certain passion that they had found a new technology, and they had an idea how this technology could be used to make the world a better place. That is the common theme of all great startups. Many of them have gone on to become very valuable companies. Many of their founders have become very wealthy, but that was never the passion that was driving them, what made them so passionate about what they wanted to do. So in our case, these founders had found something called the internet. Now, this is 1999. I was working for Amazon here in Europe in 1999, and the internet here in Europe was quite small, niche. People were saying to me, why are you working for an internet company? It's going to disappear. I mean, Amazon, who's going to hear of that in 2 or 3 years from now? So think about these 18 young people in a provincial city in China using the internet. They were really out on a limb. And they had this passion that by using the internet, they could enable other young people, young entrepreneurs, to participate in cross-border global trade, which until then would have been impossible. That would have been reserved for big companies, state companies, people with great connections. And here suddenly, many people could start doing so. So that's really driven our passion. We've now, since then, that was a B2B platform. Since then, now we do B2B, B2C, B2B2C, financial services, cloud services, Ollie Sport, Ollie Music. We do a lot of things. It can be a bit confusing and a bit daunting to understand our company. That's one of my main jobs, is to explain our company. But there's one common theme that ties it all together, going back to this initial start of the founders, which is we want to make it easy to do business anywhere. That's what Alibaba is about. Connecting people, the case of our subject today, finding ways to connect producers of food and great brands from Europe, connecting them to the Chinese consumer, and trying to do that as easy as possible, because it's not easy. That's what we're about. So if I think about the development of the consumer in China, I'd like to go back about 30 or 40 years, so one generation ago. And this is a very important thing, because I realized this myself actually once sitting on a train between Shanghai and Hangzhou, looking around me and seeing many young people, all of them with smartphones, all of them wearing clothing and consumer articles which were quite sophisticated. It occurred to me, in Europe, here in Denmark, our parents perhaps weren't buying smartphones, or they definitely were not buying smartphones. But what they were buying were products of a certain quality. They had selection, they had many different ways of retail access to those products, and they took that as a given. This is not the case in China. One generation ago, most Chinese consumers did not have selection, they did not have access to quality goods. And you go only one generation forward to their children, and they have everything in terms of offerings for quality, for luxury, for price sensitive, all the way up to incredibly things. The Chinese consumer in the last generation, in one period of 30 years, has gone from having a no selection or little selection to being the most sophisticated and demanding consumer in the world today. And that without any basis with their parents. So it's a very different situation than most of us are used to here in Europe or in the US. So if we then jump forward, let's fast forward 18 years to the founding of Alibaba, as I mentioned. When this happened, when these young people were doing this was when China was opening up, the economy was opening up, it was being made possible, allowed, and encouraged even for people to set up their own businesses. And it was in that environment that our founders, Jack Ma and the other 17 founders, started offering this opportunity, started building our first platforms. If we then jump forward to today, so 18 years to today, China is an amazing market. I think we all know how important it is, how large it is, but let me just give you a sense of that. China has population of 1.4 billion. But it's not that 1.4 billion that is most important right now when we talk about food and consumer goods, bringing those from Europe to China. What's most important is the Chinese middle class. But the amazing thing is the Chinese middle class is also huge. There are around 300 million, what we would define as Chinese middle class. They do not necessarily all have the same disposable income as the middle class here in Denmark, but they are middle class in the sense that they have disposable income and they want to spend it in certain ways. That number of 300 million is forecasted to grow to 500 million in the next 5 years. 500 million middle-class Chinese looking for quality goods and products. Another way to think about the scale of China, there are 10 cities today in the United States with a population of 1 million or more. This is New York, Dallas to Los Angeles. 10 cities, the largest cities in the United States. In China, there are 102 cities today with a population of over 1 million. That number is forecasted to go to 220 cities with a population of 1 million and more, compared to 10 in the US. Maybe in that time period in the US, there'll be 12. So think of all those consumers, all of these very large cities, and what they are looking for. What they are looking for is a way to improve the quality of their lives and the quality of their family lives. This is the single common theme when I look at what categories are largest on our platforms, when I look at the brands that are being most sought after, when I look at what's most successful. It always comes down to a single theme. When I have disposable income as a Chinese middle class, I'm looking for products that improve my quality of life and improve the quality of my children's lives. Why is, for example, baby food one of the largest categories? There's all sorts of side reasons that people talk about, but what people are missing is it's because the baby is the most important member of the family. He's the member of the family that you have this much disposable income, where are you going to spend it? On quality food for your baby. So this is what's driving so much of the activity in China, so much of what the consumer is looking for. And I would encourage people, when we're thinking about how to help bring quality food products from Denmark and other countries, it's very important to be thinking about, it's no longer an opportunity to say, I can take this product there and it's maybe not the top quality, and maybe I'm going to charge a little more for it. Some people did that in the past. Those days are gone. The Chinese is an extremely well-informed consumer who is willing to pay a premium if it is represented in real quality by the brand or by the food. So as Alibaba, we're very proud and very happy that we've helped to play a role in this development of the Chinese consumer. Many people don't know, when e-commerce came to Europe and the US, there was already a very well-developed retail situation. Mom and pop stores, chains, shopping malls. None of that existed in China when e-commerce started 18 years ago. It might have existed in some of the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, but nothing like what we're used to. That's why we often say, our founder often says, that e-commerce in the West came as a dessert. E-commerce in China is the main course. It's a very different development. So what we're looking at is, what can we do in the future? Let's say the Chinese consumer and the future from now. So we have about 500 million shoppers on our platform. But there are 600 million Chinese today who do not have access to the benefits of e-commerce. They live in rural villages, rural small cities, very far away, where they either don't have the internet access or the product cannot be shipped to them the way it can be in the tier 1 and 3 cities. So what we've launched a program called Rural Taobao, where we're trying to empower 100,000 villages in China to have access to both buying and selling the goods they produce in their villages and the goods they want to buy and to selling them. We've so far empowered about 30,000. You set up a center, this one shop, I had the privilege of visiting one. It was this one young woman, she was there from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. This wouldn't work in Denmark, I'm assuming, but from 8 to 8, 7 days a week, she was the only, I would say, young adult in the village. A lot of small children, a lot of elderly people, because as many of you probably know, most of the young adults have to go to the cities to work and come home maybe only once a year, every other 6 months. But people would come to her shop, she had a big screen, she had a few basic products, and then people could order from our rural Taobao site, or they could sell the produce that they were producing. So it's projects like this is a long-term project. This is going to take years to become perhaps a big business opportunity, but that's not really what it's about. It's about what can we do to find scalable ways to help the other 600 million Chinese also benefit from this explosion of access to quality goods, access to both selection, broad selection, and deep selection that the Chinese consumer is so interested in today. There's many other things we're working on with our short time today. I won't go into them. One of them is what we call new retail. New retail we would here in Europe refer to as omni-channel. Alibaba is the largest e-commerce platform in the world, but that's not really how we think of ourselves. We think of ourselves as a platform to make it easy to do business. And we actually have come to the conclusion consumers don't want just online. No consumer gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to buy some milk online, I'm going to go and buy a watch in a store, and I'm going to buy a shirt online again. No one does that. It says, I need a shirt. I have a brand in mind, and I'm going to engage with that brand across all touch points. That's what omnichannel is about, using all customer touch points to deliver the best shopping experience. But we're a platform. So for us, the challenge is how do we enable the thousands of merchants that we work with to also find ways to do omnichannel new retail in China. And again, this is how we try to invest in what I would say are scalable ways to help make it easier to do business. So I hope that short little interlude, a little bit of an explanation of Alibaba, a little bit of insight into how the amazing development of the Chinese consumer in the past generation, how different it is, but how exciting it is to be part of a job and be part of an ecosystem to bring quality Danish food products and give these consumers access to buying those in an easy and comfortable way. Thank you.
Wow.